Hi, so pleased that you've joined us for today's Bible story. This is the first of 5 stories from the Bible. If you want to follow along today, have a look in a Bible about 2/3 of the way through and try and find a book called Luke. And if you find the big 5, that means chapter 5, and that's where today's story comes from. So we hope you really enjoy it, and we hope you're sitting comfortably. One day, many crowds had come to the shore of a great big lake, a lake called Galilee. And they'd come to listen to Jesus. They were pressing in on him, and Jesus was right on the edge of the shore. It's a good job he didn't fall in the water. Well, he looked around him, and he saw that there was a couple of empty fishing boats. So he called over to a man named Peter, who was there washing his net. You see, he'd been out fishing all night. He said, "Peter, can we just go in your boat?" So Peter and maybe a few of the others and Jesus jumped in the boat, and they just backed off a little bit. And these crowds were all over the edge of the lake. And Jesus began to teach them from there. I wonder if they were maybe thinking through life, what life is about. Maybe they had some questions like you and I have. What's life all about? How do we make sense of life? Well, they began to listen to Jesus as he was teaching them. Now, as Jesus was explaining maybe some of the things to do with life, some of the things about how he makes sense of life, he looked around and he spoke to Peter. He said, "Peter, let's just go out into the deeper water and let's put down the nets and we'll catch some fish." Now, do you know what Peter had been doing? He'd been fishing all night. He was probably exhausted. And he said to Jesus, now remember, Jesus, his trade was a carpenter. He'd grown up with his father Joseph, and they'd made things out of wood for a living. And so here was Jesus telling an experienced fisherman to go into the deep water, throw down the nets and catch the fish. Now Peter was probably thinking, Jesus, you know that around here, the best time to catch fish is during the middle of the night. And actually, all the fish, they tend to gather around the edge of the lake. We never catch any fish in the deep water. We've learned that through years of experience. But Jesus says, no, Peter, go out into the deep water. It's now the middle of the day. Go out into the deep water, throw down your nets, and we'll catch some fish. Now, Peter could have said, Jesus, I don't believe you. And he wouldn't have gone. But actually, because Peter simply said, Jesus, okay, I'll do what you say, we have this incredible story, and we have a miracle that we can learn from. So that's what they did. Peter in his boat and a few others in another boat, they went out into the deep water, and they cast their nets down to one side. And do you know, sure enough, just like Jesus had said, the nets began to burst with fish, probably so full that a few of them escaped through some of the holes that were in the nets. But they began to haul the nets up out of the water and pull them into the boat. And you know, the Bible says that actually there was so many fish in the nets that they weighed the boat down and the boat began to get unstable. You know, some of them were probably afraid the boat was going to tip over, so they called one of the other boats over and they began to haul this net in together. They were working together. Now Peter, he took a step of faith and he believed exactly what Jesus said. Now some people think of this word faith and it's some kind of weird thing that's going on. But actually all Peter did was, after listening to what Jesus had said, he acted based on what Jesus had said. That's all faith is. And when the Bible talks about faith, it simply means that we just act based on what the Bible has to say. And we say, okay, if the Bible says it, I'll do it. Well, Peter listened to these words, and he found out that actually Jesus was no ordinary person. Because you or I could say to a fisherman, yeah, just go into the middle of the lake and have a bit more fish, and they might not catch anything. We've got no idea. But because it was Jesus saying this to Peter, Jesus, we see, has power over nature. He was able to bring all of those fish into the net. He was able to arrange the circumstances so that we saw this miracle. Well, after pulling these nets up, Peter stopped to think. Now, they're there with a boat full of fish, all wriggling about. And Jesus is in the boat, and so is Peter, and he stops to think, what has just happened? And suddenly, the light goes on. And Peter thinks, hey, this Jesus, he's no ordinary man. This Jesus has just done something incredible. I've never seen that in all my years of fishing. And so he falls to his knees and he looks up to Jesus and he says, I am too bad. Jesus, get away from me. He calls Jesus Lord. Now, all he was saying was, Jesus, you've got authority over this lake. He probably didn't know the extent of Jesus' authority. But he realized that Jesus had just done a miracle. And so he begins to think that Jesus is this incredible person. Now, over the next few Bible stories, we're going to be thinking about exactly who Jesus is and why we should even bother to take the time to understand who Jesus is for ourselves and really ask those questions. Now, Simon said those words. He said, Jesus, get away from me. I'm too dirty. I'm not good enough to be around you. But do you know the beautiful thing that Jesus says? He says to Simon, come and follow me, and I'll teach you how to fish for people. Doesn't matter too much right now what that means. But the point is this. Jesus was saying to Simon Peter, come and follow me. Come and be with me. He didn't say, no, go away. You're right. You're not good enough for me. He said, Simon Peter, come and follow me. Come and be with me. And you know, that's the invitation that Jesus has. He wants us to come and be with him. Yes, we may feel awful. We may feel bad. We're going to think about that tomorrow. But Jesus invites us to come and live life with him so that, like the map, he can tell us all about life through the Bible, and he can make sense of the world around us through what he says. So, will you join us for the rest of our times together in the Bible? I hope you enjoyed this. There'll be some questions as well that you can write the answers to. See you next time.